Greetings, everybody. I'm Scott Rodell here at the Great River Taoist Center, home to our Academy of Chinese Swordsmanship. Today, I've got another sword review for you, this Chinese Jian. You're probably noticing right away and thinking that doesn't really look like a typical Chinese Jian. It doesn't. Obviously, it's not the classical sort of form for a Jian. It's what we would call a tactical Jian, designed by Gus Trim and distributed by Iberia. One of the things I really like about it is it's very functional, sort of straightforward design, something you don't worry about getting dinged up if you're traveling around with it. The scabbard fits pretty tight. It clips in. You hear that kind of snap in. It's got two little divots in there that click into a spot here on the guard, excuse me, on the grip there. It's not quite, if I shake it, it can usually pops out, and I've already put a hole, a ding in my floor once testing that out. But generally, I mean, it's not going to fall right out. So that's another nice feature of it. And it's got, these little holes there in the scabbard that are really nice for, if you want to hang it on your belt or stuff, something like that. Usually, of course, you don't just take it back and forth to class or whatever. But if you wanted to, you can. Blade-wise, it has a 26.5-inch blade that's 67 centimeters and a 6.5-inch grip. So it's quite nice. It's well within the historical range. And by the way, if you're interested in learning how to really wield a sword like this, interested in Chinese Jianfa, please definitely check out the link below for the Academy of Chinese Swordsmanship. Plenty of online classes. We have in-person seminars, retreats. So if you want to learn how to really use a Jian, check out the Academy. But this one you might look at and go, look at that edge taper. And when I first saw this, I thought, is it going to have a good point of balance? And it does. That's one of the real concerns. So regardless of what style Jian you like, whether you prefer the traditional or whether you want something that's, a little more modern and sleek like this, what's really going to be important is, does it handle properly? And I would say that this point of balance is well within historical range. It is a very sharp, keen blade. Got to really be aware of that. It's not a dull sword. I think because, especially with an MSRP of only $219, this is a really nice sword for somebody who's developing in their practice, relatively new, but, thinking, okay, now I've done enough work with my basic cuts, enough of my form work that, I feel like I'm ready for a sharp sword, but maybe you don't want one that's quite as long. This sword weighs in at 2 pounds. That's about 900 grams. So it's about the same weight as my cutting Jian, but that has a 31-inch blade. That's going to be a little more demanding to control in form and especially in cutting. So just starting out cutting, this is, I think, a really good sword for people to begin that practice with. And also, that MSRP of $219, do a web search. I think you'll find it cheaper than that out there. So that makes it also, I think, very desirable sword, especially for beginners. I would say too, if you're a teacher where you're bringing your students out and just acquainting them with test cutting for the first time, probably cutting something easy like bottles and so on, this is a good loaner sword to have at the school. You don't always have to have a really nice sword because it is going to get dinged up with beginners practicing with it and hitting things off target, maybe hitting the metal stand sometimes. So it's great to have an inexpensive sword like this that you can have as a loaner for students who are just starting off. So I think that's another really good feature of it. And by the way, this is going to be a 2-part review. Today I just want to look at the specs, give you a good idea of how it handles. And in the second part, once the bamboo comes up, it's still early spring here, got to let it get a little bit bigger and harden off. I'll come back and do some test cutting with it and give you the lowdown on how it cuts. But given how sharp it is and its balance, I think it's going to be a good cutter. But we're going to put that to the test and see for sure. So the only thing I don't care for about this, and it's a relatively minor point, I'd say everything else so far I'd say is a plus, 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 plus for a recommended buy. One thing I would love to see them change is the grip. It has a very sort of straightforward grip, much like what you would see on a Chinese Dao. Chinese Jian always have this lozenge-shaped grip. We're talking about the Jian from the Ming and Qing period. It has that grip that necks down in all dimensions. And that makes it a little bit easier to change directions, develop that versatility, that adaptive qualities that are really important in Jian Fa. Obviously, can do it with a grip like this, but I'd love to see that, next iteration of this, if they do an updated one, just bring that down a little bit, at least get some of that curvature or some of that lozenge shape into the sword so that it is a little easier to change directions with. But I've also done a little bit of research, and this G10 material that the grip is made out of, it's a common material that they make knife grips with these days. You can sand it and shape it. So I'm thinking I'm going to try that. Maybe when I get through the cutting, I'll give you a little feedback on how that was. But I wouldn't say that anyway, that's a deal breaker, especially at under 200 bucks. Great sword. So definitely a recommended buy. Tactical Jian, designed by Gus Trim, distributed by Iberia. If you have any questions or comments, other ideas, please leave them below. I always try to do my best to get to the answering those as quickly as I can. And until next time, we always appreciate that thumbs up. Subscriptions are always welcome. Stay strong, everybody. 再见.